Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming in.
Oh my God, thank you. How are you?
Well, I'm okay. I mean, this is a new thing for me. It's like we were talking earlier about teaching old dogs new tricks, you know.
I know.
And so there's a lot of like when we did that sound check earlier.
Yeah.
And my manager's texting me, and people that I work with text me saying, "You're live, you're live." I'm like, I know, we're sound checking.
I
You
know.
and
It's like when my mom discovered YouTube, and we were out just like, I went on the YouTube and I found this video of you. And once I watched it, all these other ones came up. And I was like,
God, and that was it. She was down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. How are you?
So yeah, I'm good. I don't know, you know, so the focus of this thing is like a bass playing thing. I mean, at least we use that for the stepping off point.
Okay.
And you know, music. And I know that you're such a deep thinker musically. I mean, we reconnected at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this time last year, right?
Exactly.
And you walked out and you gave the Zombies their, you know, you gave them that incredible tribute. I thought I was like, wow, really, really knocked out. I mean, can we just go back? I'd like to talk about starting out and connecting and how it became a passion for you.
Yeah, well, I think honestly, again, back to my mom, from her memory, it was like from the cradle, literally. She was always playing music. It was the 1960s, you know, and so I just would sort of sing along, along, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
She said that she had a little cradle with wheels on it, and it was on a wooden floor, and she'd find that I'd sort of rocked and rolled and cooed all the way to the other side of the room, and she'd roll it back. So it just, I don't know, it's like, I think, and I think this is probably true for you too, and for some people and many people, music shoots straight past everything else. It has this way of kind of just knifing in a way and changing you if you respond to it. If you're a person who responds to it, for me, it's like, I don't want to make the drug analogy, but here I'll go. I'll make it. It is kind of like like a drug. I could be in a certain mood. I could be fearful. I could be anxious. I could be gloomy, and I can actually pull myself out of these moods by just listening to a song.
Yeah, totally. And I think actually everybody that's tuning into this chat now, I think they all get it, because I think they're all music lovers and music people. I mean, you and I know it's not really the right thing to talk about a lady's age, but we're kind of the same. We are of the same generation, you and I.
John, I'm totally honest with you. I'm a 61-year-old woman.
Woo, bring it on.
I'm not gonna hide.
Yeah, I'm coming yet. I'm right there with you, kid.
It's all okay.
Yeah,
right?
but you know, you mentioned your mother, and I mean, like, you know, my mother was from Liverpool. So when I was 2 years old and the Beatles came along, I mean, my mom was just a freak for it. I mean, she loved the Beatles. So I mean, I got them through her lens, if you know what I mean. So they were not going to go unnoticed in my house, even though I was a toddler. You know, this music would come on, she would sing along, and it was a thing, you know. Did you go to church?
It really was.
Did you go to church?
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
No, well, my mother's father was a rabbi, a really brilliant rabbi, and a civil rights activist, and marched with Martin Luther King. Really incredible human being, Rabbi Ralph Simon of Chicago. But I had, in our household, so I was not raised with much religion, given that, but music was kind of a religion in the house, you know. It was sort of in the way that your mom loved the Beatles. My mom loved the Beatles, and actually one of her best friends worked at Capitol Records.
Oh my!
So we have all the original Beatles albums, because my mother would say, "Bring me a copy." So we had all the original, and it was a bonding thing for my brothers and I, because you know, I have an older brother named John, so he kind of took on the persona of John Lennon, and I don't know who I was in the band. I kind of maybe fashioned myself after Paul a bit, but
of course.
I have a younger brother, Jesse, who who is more like Ringo. And so we just pretended we were a band.
And when did you think I could pick, when did you think about picking up an instrument, and what was that instrument?
Well, because I was singing and cooing from birth, essentially, it became evident that I should perhaps have something to accompany me. So luckily, my mother's younger brother was also a music fanatic and ended up being a guitar builder, ended up playing with Linda Ronstadt. He put the first guitar into my arms. So I have pictures of myself, like 1967, I was just 8, playing guitar. Like I was playing guitar mostly to accompany myself, as I said. So I had something to sing to, so it wasn't a cappella. And
is there such a thing as a home movie from that period? Because I would pay good money to see that.
I know. I have a photo. I'll send it to you. But I don't have a home movie. I don't think. For whatever reason, my parents weren't documenting everything with a movie. No. Back then. We
Mine
were
neither.
Just kind of being.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, they weren't really. Mine were not tech savvy at all.
Mine still aren't.
Yeah, it's quite a thing though, isn't it? I mean, I think like for my parents, just learning how to use a box brownie camera, that was a big technological leap, or like a doorbell.
Yeah. So we don't, but if I ever come across a home movie, that would be interesting. It's funny to look back at our age and see the artifacts and the evidence of our youth. It's all very black and white still.
Yeah, I find as well that, I can be quite judgmental of the person that I am sitting here, but when I look back at myself, I have nothing but love and compassion,
I know.
And support,
I know. It's interesting, but music seems to be the through line. Definitely. For both of us.
So okay. So what about just, seeing as I'm a bass player, and this is, did you ever feel, do you remember thinking that's a good bass line, or do you remember being aware of the bass guitar and the role that it played in the music that you liked?
Well, first of all, being Paul McCartney, back to Paul, and playing this way, right?
Yes, left-handed. Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, the Paul bass lines were probably the first bass lines that stood out to me, and they're so melodic, and they do so much in the song, don't you think?
Absolutely. He always made really interesting choices. He always made choices that enhanced the harmonic climate, if you like, of what was going on.
And and we're really melodic.
Yeah.
Not just rhythmic.
No, it was like he was playing counterpoint to himself a lot of the time, just to bring in, very rich palette of sound.
A lot of those like cool, now I'm spacing on which song, but like he'd go up high and do like a little rhythm thing.
Yeah. And at first it was just that Hofner bass, which, when I actually came to hold a Hofner bass like that,
it's like
as a grown-up, it was so tiny.
It's so cute and lovely.
And light, super lightweight. I mean, I like guitar, but I kind of liked. I wasn't a front man. I knew I didn't see myself in that role, but I loved the side guys. I loved the guys that would come into the singer, like Ronnie Wood, or Mick Ronson with Bowie. I really liked those guys. It felt like they didn't have. I don't know whether it was because they were holding the guitar, but they didn't have the pressure of the center stage.
Yeah.
It seemed like a little bit less pressure to be a sideman.
Yes.
But I definitely didn't think it was going to be bass.
Really?
But well, when I was sort of drawn, I was 16 really before I seriously picked up a guitar. And thought, I've got to figure this out. But everybody was playing guitar at the time, and I kind of gravitated towards bass because nobody was really interested in playing the bass. And if they were, it was like you just gave the bass to the dumb kid who didn't have anything else to do, and he'd just go do 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 and follow the guitar chords, But like I wanted to do something a little bit more different.
And you did.
Yeah, well, I was just following in the line of, but realizing how important. I mean, I love dance music. Were you ever into,
Well, don't forget, because of my age and our age, that like disco happened in the 70s.
Yeah.
for me, right when I was graduating high school, so around the end of high school, I graduated in 76. So yeah, I mean, I was a dancer too. That was my other passion. I studied ballet really seriously, and then I did jazz, and then I went off to UC Berkeley, and I was in the dance company. I got into the company.
Wow.
And, so while I was studying dance, I was then in Berkeley. I would go and see like the Sex Pistols in San Francisco.
Did you? Were you there?
I saw Patti Smith. I saw their last show at Winter
Wow.
Ballroom.
Wow.
And I went and saw Patti Smith. So I was having this sort of mind expanding time in college, which is kind of what you're meant to do. But but back to dance. Dance was the other thing. I think it's really, I don't know if this is true for you, but I find with musicians that they often love to draw, paint. For me, it was all of those things. I ended up leaving the dance department and becoming an art major. So I was painting, I was dancing, I was writing, I was doing photography, and I was wanting to start a band. It all kind of was this big soup for me. But
photography, it's funny you mentioned photography, because on the shelf up here, I remember you turned me on to Diane Arbus.
I did.
Years ago. And I had no idea who she was. But yes, you've got an incredibly well-rounded cultural, you've got all those interests going on. And I agree. I think if that's your thing, I'm not terribly big on, like I call it, the real world, and the world of, of concrete things. I'm all about creativity, really. That's what makes the world interesting to me. And, but yes, the 70s also, I mean, that's the double whammy for you and I, isn't it? That we were just learning to talk as the Beatles were singing. And then as we were really learning to think, the Sex Pistols came along. And, and Patti Smith came along, like you said. And I mean, that's an incredible education right there, forgetting disco and glam. Because actually, just to go back to disco, and I was talking about it in this tutorial that I just posted. I mean, just as I started to play bass, disco, started to make an impact on me. And it's interesting. I read a review recently from the New Musical Express that Danny Baker wrote, reviewing Chic's Risque album, which is the album that Good Times was on.
Yeah.
And he's saying everybody in the office thinks this moment is all about Johnny Thunders. Said, but in 20 years' time, it's Bernard Edwards' bass lines they're going to be talking about. And I was like, wow, because everybody else was going disco, bollocks, it doesn't mean anything, but that music has stayed with us.
I know.
It's proved to be really durable.
And dancing is still sort of like, an extension of what music does to me. Music can soothe you, it can console you, but it can also make you want to, move your hips and dance,
They're saying the comments are like, show us a dance, Susanna.
Oh my God. Well, we'll have to do another episode where we do that.
Yeah. I guess it also helps you. I mean, because I love watching choreographed dancing, and I guess it also shows you how the music, the beats of the music, you're moving, the movements are very much sort of programmed to the sound, the beats, the notes. So it's another way of getting inside the music. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know. And so it sort of works on so many levels. A song, you can dissect a song, back to your question about bass lines. And it's weird because my kids report back to me now that without knowing it, I was giving them an education in music, because we would listen to music in the car. And when you live in LA, you're in the car a lot. Yeah. Right? So the music that I would curate for them, and they sort of had no choice. After a while, it was like, and one of them would say, I'm the DJ on the way to school, it gets to be my playlist. But I would just, sort of impose my favorite things on them as an education. And I would always say, like, if I was playing like Led Zeppelin, Ramble On or something, I was like, check out the bass line. Check out that bass line is so incredible. And so they would tune their ears to it. Or if it was, a Sonny and Cher song or something, I'd say, like, that's an oboe playing on a pop record, And so I didn't realize I was doing it, but it's that thing where you could listen to a song 10 times and find some new thing, if you really listen, of what was going on with an arrangement, and it will blow your mind.
Yeah. And a lot of people A lot of people are really digging what we're, this conversation that we're having here. Digging. Sorry about that. But
No, it's
so,
good.
so, so, songwriting. So when did that start happening for you?
Well, I started writing, bizarrely, these sort of like Kingston Trio kind of folk songs back in
Really?
the day
Uh-huh.
when I was like there's the picture of me when I was 8 with the guitar. So it was 1967. And I would write things like the Rock Island Line, even though that was already a famous old folk song. So I
Yeah.
kind of wrote folk songs early on. And so, because my uncle who taught me guitar, my mother's younger brother, was very good at folk, from that kind of 60s folk,
Mm,
like the
mm,
Kingston
mm,
Trio,
mm,
and
mm, mm.
Trini Lopez, I think, was another one who did Lemon Tree, all those kind of old folk songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then in college, obviously, I met David. Well, I grew up with this guy, David Robeck, who started the band Mazzy Star. I don't know if you know Mazzy Star. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was a childhood friend. I won't get into too much detail about that, but we started writing together. And then when I graduated and came home in the summer of 1980, I advertised myself in what was the Craigslist of its time, The Recycler. And I met the Peterson sisters, who are
Uh-huh.
still my bandmates
Right.
all these many years. And we began writing in earnest at that point, as the band came together at the end of 1980.
Do you remember well, of course, the first show that you played together and
Yeah.
the opening song?
Wow. We all had day jobs at that point. I worked in a ceramics factory. Actually, the uncle who taught me guitar, Carmi Simon is his name, and he gave me a job. And I sat alone in a room doing like sort of sanding ceramics things, listening to the radio. I'm digressing a little bit, but the first show was at Vicky, our guitarist, our lead guitarist, worked at a movie studio in Culver City. Our first gig was playing for the other employees at
Uh-huh.
the movie studio in a
Wow.
big sound stage. And I don't remember what the first song was, but I remember that I spent the whole show staring down at the neck of my guitar, making sure I was being perfect. It was like I
Yeah.
wanted an A+
Yeah.
on playing. The next show we did was at a punk rock. Somehow we were thrown in with a bunch of punk rock bands for some event. It might have been for No Magazine, like a fanzine or something. And it was at that show, I vividly remember that I was facing a different kind of audience. They were
Right.
a punk rock audience, full stop punk rock audience. And I just thought, I don't need an A+ on my report card. I don't need to be perfect. I
Yeah.
need to lose myself in the music 100%. If I make a mistake, can we swear?
Yes.
Fuck
Please.
it. If we make a mistake, fuck it, And it was just in the moment of being on stage, that second performance was when I realized what really mattered, which was just really losing myself in the music. And that's another one of the magical things about music and also playing music, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
John, is that everything disappears.
Exactly. It's that
Everything.
moment. It's that moment, when the tour manager says, "Cues the lights," and the
Yeah,
house lights go down,
yeah,
and it's like, for me, that is like, oh, peace at last.
right?
Because for the next hour and a half, I know what I have to do, and the people that I'm closest to, they know what they have to do, and the dialogue that is constantly running actually gets to take a pause, and it's a very
In
powerful thing. And I
your own
loved it.
monologue,
What's that?
your own monologue in your
Yeah,
head.
but I loved it when I was going to see other artists, before I had my own band, and I would go to see, whoever it was I was going to see. And that moment when the lights went down, it was just, it was just so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we were both, I think that very broadly, I think the Bangles and Duran, both you could fit into the new wave bag. We were that second, I don't know about you, and certainly with your you know, with your folk background that I'm now aware of. But
Yes.
so with the other girls, I mean, Duran, even though we didn't play punk rock, we wouldn't have existed without punk rock. Punk rock gave us permission, you know. I mean,
Exactly.
really, you know, Andy was like a hard rock guitarist, and he came from a different place. But the rest of us, we would have never turned to music. None of us had had any real, you know, music education. Well, what about the rest of the girls?
I mean, we were all pretty much self-taught,
Yeah,
and you know, full disclosure, I don't know how to read music. It's
no,
it's shameful, really. But
yeah,
I just folk tradition. It's all like a recipe. It's
yeah,
a recipe that gets passed down, and you know, it was like, yeah. I mean, so we're not trained. No, we
yeah.
were definitely felt we were in the tradition of LA garage bands.
It makes sense though what you're saying because you've always had an incredible poise at the front of that band, you know, and you're really like you're Joan Baez, you know, backed by the Clash, you know, that there's like, you know, and that to me has always been. I used to love. I mean, I came to see you guys quite a few times,
You did.
and I mean, for a moment there, I mean, I'd never really been into an all girl band. And you guys were so incredible. I mean, we were talking about what, 83, maybe something like that. I remember going to see you at Jones Beach, or it could have been
Oh,
maybe
you
a
went
little
to see
later
it
than that.
on speech. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
That was amazing. You
you know,
said some really nice things. It was so intimidating knowing you were there. Were any of the other guys, or was it just you? Was it you and some?
I might have dragged someone along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there's some photos of us backstage, and Amy Mann. There's some photos of us with
Oh,
Amy
yeah.
too.
Yes. Yes.
But
Well,
I don't remember. I'm sure we were opening for someone at that point. We opened almost, or maybe not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, you were
yeah.
so supportive, John. Because yeah, I can tell you now, I was very intimidated that you were there, but then you were so down to earth, and just because
Wow.
of just because of your band being so amazing, and just you guys were like superstars, and we were still kind of journeying up through the you know, the experiences of mostly
Well,
being an opening band.
well, hold on there. Let's talk, you know, what about Prince? Can we talk a little bit about Prince
Yeah,
and how he came into your guys' life and how
yeah.
he announced himself to you and you know
Yeah, I mean, that was okay. So the story was that, so I often get the dates wrong. I think it was 1984. We had a song called Hero Takes a Fall out, and it was in the early days of MTV, which you will recall the MTV Prime, that
yeah,
whole
yeah,
experience, because Duran owned MTV. You were like, you had mastered the art of making videos. But anyway, so we were making essentially our first video with having been signed to a label, and it was this song Hero Takes a Fall that I wrote with Vicky.
yeah,
Apparently Prince saw the video, and that's how we discovered the Bangles. And so right right at that moment in time, it was kind of a kismet thing, because somebody told me Prince had seen the video, and it was the very week that I discovered Prince on the radio. It was When Doves Cry had just been released. So I was rather late to the party. I had been hearing about Prince for a while, but it wasn't until I heard that song on the radio that I became really aware of him. And so it was weird because he was becoming aware of the Bangles that same week. And then we were in the studio recording our second record for Columbia, and this is now like 85 or something, or maybe it came out in 86, so it would have been 85. We were working with, there was a team of engineers, a husband and wife, David and Peggy Leonard. Peggy was recording Prince at that time at Sunset Sound, that studio. We were at the sister studio, Sunset Sound Factory.
yeah.
And we got a call that Prince had a song for the Bangles, and would I drive over to Sunset Sound and pick it up? So I drove over alone in my car, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to meet Prince. But he was recording in that moment, so the little cassette, which I still have, was waiting for me. And I drove back to Sunset Sound Factory, and I handed it over, and we all hovered around the cassette player in the olden days. and it was Manic Monday. And that was our great gift from Prince.
So how did you record it? Was he there?
He made accessible to us his tracks.
Oh, right.
But being Bangles and being of the mind that we wanted to Banglefy it from the ground up, our own tracks, Debbie on bass, Michael on bass, Debbie on drums, sorry, Michael on bass, me and Vicky on guitars. We just, recorded the track ourselves because that felt right, instead of putting our vocals on top of the existing track that he had offered up to us if we wanted it. And I'll never forget singing it the first time, just being in that dark room and that red light fever thing where you can tell the red light's on and you're in record, and just really going for it. And that feeling of like, it fit. It's like putting your foot in the glass slipper and feeling like you're suddenly Cinderella or something. Like, you just know when something feels right, like when you're playing anything or singing anything. Sometimes you just stretch, you find yourself like working too hard to make it feel right, as opposed to when it just feels right. It's like it's in the pocket. Players.
I mean, I'm thinking about it actually, and an absolute genius, absolute might, one of the greatest musical powers of the century. But I think that was a very important song for him, and it was very, very important. I think that the people's perception of him changed with that song that you did of his, because suddenly the world saw him as a writer, producer. It was so perfectly pitched, and you guys did such an amazing job of it. And I think that's where he became, I mean, I don't want to say star maker, but where people were like, "Whoa, wow, hold on a second," So I think you actually, it was a mutually satisfying experience. It's also really helped his persona that he'd written this song for for this all girl group.
We just had, it was such a blast that he would just always pop up out of nowhere and often come and jump on stage at our shows.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's a little bit of audio on YouTube of him playing. He loved to play Hero Takes the Fall too, that song that Vicky and I wrote.
Wow.
And because it was just a perfect song for him to do his soloing on. And I've said this before, but I had never before and never since been in the presence of someone playing guitar where it was like channeling some higher power from somewhere. Like it was not, and the guitar was just a part of his body. It was the thing you hold and tune. It was like, and plug in, it was like a part of him. And it was, I have no words actually to describe what it felt like to just stand there and see it go down in real time. It was just amazing.
I think as a producer, I think he messed with all of us, really. I mean, I remember I was reviewing the singles for Smash Hits magazine the week that When Doves Cry came out. And I mean, I took it so personally that there was no bass on it. I'm like, what is this? There's no bass. I was so intimidated by the idea that there could be a record that powerful because apparently there was, and he was like, works better without the bass, crank up the kick drum, boof, don't need it. And so that was kind of a scary moment. And then of course the fact that he was doing everything, the fact that then we entered that phase in the sort of mid 80s where suddenly everybody's programming and everybody's tapping out a little groove and it's all sounding funky. And it was a really tricky transition, I thought, because, for me and, the band that I was in, I mean, we really prided ourselves on getting tight. We used to call it Prince tight, but where you'd get tight, and you'd want to be tight, R&B tight. And then the machine started to take over, and it started, I've got a Linn drum. I've still got this Linn drum. It's one of my favorite toys now. But like, everything got, did you guys, I mean, you've you've worked with you've never let technology take over the sound of your music. It's
we were sort of like I mentioned before, kind of a true LA garage band.
yeah.
I mean, you know, the edges got smoothed over a bit. You know, we added some keyboards. That was a big thing. But we were really of that tradition, I would say. So I guess I don't think, apart from Walk Like an Egyptian, which had a programmed drum,
Nice.
it was
Yeah.
quite out of the box for us.
Yeah.
We were completely and utterly taken aback when that song, it was just thrown out to radio as a sort of third single on a record that we thought, well, we'll see what happens. And we had no idea the response that the DJs got from people phoning in and requesting the song.
Yeah.
But I think Walk Like an Egyptian was really the only song that I can think of that really sort of, you know, kind of went in that vein, I guess, with the programming and stuff.
I did just want to mention, because I don't know, you know, many people that are watching this, but we actually we did Duran and the Bangles. We performed together, didn't we, at the Forum in like '85, I think it was, and you guys came on stage with us. I think we played If He Knew What She Wants, which I love that song so much. Did Amy Mann write that? Who wrote that song?
No, Jules Shear wrote it.
Right.
And there was a connection between Amy and Jules. Right. But yeah, they had been friends, and yeah. So I think, oh, you know what? Jules Shear is in that picture with all of us too.
Ah.
In backstage Jones Beach.
Okay, so listen, Susanna, I just want to, you know, there's so many people like please notice us. Your teenage stans adore you. I'm just wondering, I'm just kind of looking at the comments to see whether there was anything that we could pull out here.
Yeah.
80s, I mean, a lot of 80s music. Fan, do it again. Go on at Ciao John. It's really, I'm streaming all Bangles all afternoon here in Denver. Link if you're reading this. I mean, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Trying to maintain a conversation. Again, new tricks, trying to maintain a conversation and watching these things go by. I heard a couple of weeks ago, one thing that men can really focus on only one thing at a time. But actually women are quite good at focusing on several different things at the same time. Are you finding, is that the case in your household?
I don't know. I mean, I'm the only girl in the house. I have 2 sons and a husband. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone's good at multitasking. I think it might be a bullshit thing. We think we're good at, I think, I don't know, maybe it's that I've had to do it. I don't know that I like doing it. I tried, and now with social media, like the fact that the world is making us have to multitask.
I mean, I feel like the ADD thing, you know, is like whether I wanted, you know, whether I had it or not. I feel it's, and yet, well, what about this isolation mode, this quarantine mode that we find ourselves in? How's that? Is that, I mean, yesterday we spoke and you were working on a video. I was working on a video that I was doing for, it was for a school, actually. Yeah. And I think because my favorite, I've been mostly focused on creating new content. I've been working on a novel, and I can say that for a while, which has been a labor of love. And I have been recording now. I can't go to the studio because it's not, I don't do it all myself here. So that I've had to put on hold, but I've been making content for people. I miss playing music with other people. That's, you know, I think that, and back to the multitasking thing you brought up, I think when you're playing music and you are 100% in it, it is a kind of meditation. Yeah. Because you can't be kind of cooking and playing music. You have to, and you can sing in the shower and you can do it a little bit, but when you're really especially playing with other people, when you're listening to them, it's so beautiful to tune everything else out. So I think, you know, I've had to put some things on hold, like finishing my record, until it's safe to go to the studio and be around other people. People are asking us both, but I'd like to ask, what are you listening to? Is there anything new that you're listening to? Is it important to you to to be listening out to new music?
I try to listen to new music, but full disclosure, I tend to curate playlists on my Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
And I have all different ones. And like for my book, I have one that's music that's mentioned in the book. And I can listen to it and it'll help me write things in the book. So it's like it informs everything. And I have, I listen to everything from the music I grew up with, honestly. I've never gotten over that love affair. I'm still in love with the music from the 60s and 70s. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, there is something. I mean, I saw a trailer on TV. There's a 2-part documentary about Laurel Canyon on Epix coming up at the end of the month, and I just got this incredible feeling just watching it. I mean, you mentioned "I Got You, Babe" earlier. You mentioned something which we were playing at the last weekend, and it's just incredibly warm. I don't know whether it's an innocence, perhaps. But there's, yes, it is kind of like an innocence. It's like that discovery of, we can have folk music with oboes, like you said. It's got a very Phil Spector kind of thing going on. I guess it made me think, even though Phil Spector didn't produce it, just how important Phil Spector's production was at that time. Wow. And the Beatles, of course, because they started adding in these classical instruments. And
it was when they kind of found that they had to stop touring because it was so out of control for them. I think that they thought, we can't keep this going, and they went in the studio, if I'm remembering correctly, and then they got very inventive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the big decision, wasn't it, for them to actually pull out of live shows?
Yeah.
In '67, maybe.
I think
so just before Revolver, perhaps. So then they never had to give a thought to, well, can we play it live? Whereas the Stones, who became really the great band of the '70s. I think everything they did, they're like, if we can't play this live, it's not going to work.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
What about the girls? What about the band? People are asking.
Everybody's. I'm happy to report everybody's home and staying safe and doing well. So we're all doing well, and we're very lucky that that we're in that position, that we haven't, we're sad that we can't tour, but we have to do the right thing and stay home.
I mean, Candlestick Park somebody's telling me, he's having a teenage, what's your favorite power station? Oh my God, they just come so quickly. What's your favorite Depeche Mode song? Someone's asking me. How about you, Susanna? What's your favorite Depeche Mode song?
Oh my God, well, what's yours? I can't, when someone asks me a question like, what's your favorite color? I suddenly, it's a weird phenomenon. I go into a bit of a panic.
Gosh, I do remember I used to go to a record store in Soho called Rocks in Your Head. Do you remember that store? It was down in the basement on Prince Street. And whenever I go to New York, I go and check out this record store. And I remember being in there one time and thinking, what the hell is this? Thinking it was new music, and it was the band. But more importantly, he would have The Cure, and he'd have Depeche Mode, but he didn't have Duran. And I used to say, yeah, man, I'm in Duran. I just wondered, where'd you draw the line? And he goes, Depeche Mode.
That's great.
So I've got a note. Wendy is saying to mention thanks to the teenage fans when you thank the fans, teenage fans.
We have teenage fans?
Do we have teenage fans?
It's directed at Duran and
no, I think it's directed at I'm assuming it's directed at both of us.
Nothing is more exciting than having teenage fans.
Yeah.
And thinking that the music that much of it made in 30 years ago is still resonating.
Vegetable JPG says, yes, you do. I feel like I'm the only 18-year-old on this chain. Depeche released Violator. I must say, actually, that's a great album. That is a masterpiece, Violator. I will say that. Susanna, I think the last show, I can't remember if Kaboo in San Diego was maybe the last show we played. It was the last big show. We played the same day, didn't we, at Kaboo?
Yeah, we did.
Do you like playing festivals?
I like it. I find it challenging in terms of just the technical side of it.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that worked out very well. Honestly, I find one thing that's tricky about playing live and why I love playing in the living room with people, unplugged, is I love listening to what other people are doing. And often when you get on the big stages, you've got monitors jammed in your ear and you have too much of yourself and you can't quite get the, do you find that too, John?
Well, I was the last adopter of the in-ear monitors, you know, and I was a real holdout, and I thought it was, no, you can't do that. It's not rock and roll. You know, we've got to have the sound. We've got to have the sound. But I think, you know, the singer was the first, you know, Simon, it was like, wow, you know, I don't have to fight with, you know, everything else. I can get a perfect tone, sound, and then gradually it just took over. And
but I don't like that feeling of isolation.
Well, you definitely have to work at it. Definitely have to work on it.
I've never nailed it. I've never really quite got it right. When I compare it to just sitting next to someone and playing with them, just acoustic, it's just the most blissful thing for me personally, because I'm not fighting that noise. It's like you're having to constantly dial things.
Yeah. Well, we should do that one of these days.
Let's do it. When we come out of our homes.
Yeah.
Places.
I really want to thank you. I also want to just thank everybody that helped make this happen. I want to thank Gila, because I completely lost without. She's like everything. She's the overall technical production assistant. She's dropping me notes. She's really giving to the fund here. I want to thank Wendy and Sharon and Kathy in New York. They really help us with that. Well, we couldn't do this without them. And I really want to thank you, Susanna. It's really great to catch up with you.
It's so great to catch up with you, John.
Yeah. So, well, we don't like that phrase, stay safe, in this house, but I guess it is an important.
You have to.
It is important to stay safe. And I'll see you at the other end of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
I look forward to that. Love to everyone.
Bye.
Mwah.